Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, Monkey Wrench. I'm Kelly, the monkey with the wrench. I've gotten a lot of comments on this video series in the last few weeks, asking me if there are any updates, what else I've had to do to this machine. This machine has been on the south side. I've cut close to 200 yards with it in the last 4 months. And I have not had a trailer until last week. I got a trailer large enough to be able to bring this back to the shop. I've been having two issues with it. One, it's running a little bit rough and it takes a minute to start. And so I'm going to be setting the valves, checking the valves, which I never did on this machine, and making sure they're set properly and putting in 2 new spark plugs. Now the carburetor is more than fine. I don't think that's the issue. So I think setting the valves and changing the spark plugs is going to take care of that problem. Other than that, I still have not put a new motor on. It's an electric motor on this machine that raises and lowers the deck. Basically, I have the deck set at the height that I cut all of my lawns at, and because I just drive it through the neighborhood from house to house to do my thing, I don't have to raise and lower it. So I just have the deck set where I need it to be, because finding a motor for that has been hard used, and I won't spend 150 bucks on a motor that allows me to raise and lower my deck. I love all my other Zeros because they're mechanical. That one you pull a lever, that one you push a foot pedal, lifts the deck, lowers the deck. So until I find a used one here for 50 or 60 bucks, I'm not even going to worry about it. And it's only got to work for another month or two before the season is over. At that point, I'm going to pull this. I found that it has a slight oil leak somewhere. Not enough that I've even had to add any oil when using it, but I check it every time before I use it. And it's got a film of oil, so I'm going to pull it apart just like we did on that Gravely. Put all new seals in it, check everything out, put it back together. The other issue that I've been having with it is I would have to take a second battery with me, because I'd get maybe 2 lawns, maybe 3 lawns. This has an electric PTO. It was killing the battery. So I knew we had a charging system issue. So I have gone, that's what this video is on. I have gone to the parts house. If you can see that, you can pause that. That is the numbers for this particular voltage regulator. If you want to know where your numbers are, they're usually on a Briggs, stamped on the valve cover right there. So get the part for your machine. That's why I don't do a lot of part numbers. This is a 23 horse dual cylinder, 2-cylinder. That's the part number for mine, but this is the voltage regulator. And what I did to know that it was the voltage regulator, in order to check the stator, and I just did a video on this on a John Deere, it's all the same. These are the 2 wires that come off the stator. If you get your multimeter and you go on each side, positive, negative, one on the other, it doesn't matter which. This should be AC volts, and it should be putting out between 24 and 40 volts. So if you start the machine, you pull that plug, which in this case is the plug that goes to the voltage regulator. That's the amount of power that's coming off the stator. Take your multimeter on AC, that's alternating current, that's house current, and check it. And if it's reading at least 24 volts of AC current, then you know your stator's good. If it's reading less than that, your stator's probably not good. You'll have to change that. The next thing you do is check the voltage on your voltage regulator. This is the power coming from the stator to the voltage regulator. Then on the voltage regulator, you have this red wire. It's usually a single wire that comes out. It plugs in here on this one. So I took my multimeter and I set it on 20 volts DC, 20. Put the positive in there, put the negative to the engine to make a ground. And out of your voltage regulator, you should be getting right at 14 volts. That's enough to charge your 12-volt battery and have a little extra. So if you're not getting 14 volts, if you're getting 13 or 12 or less, your voltage regulator is no good. That's how you test it. So in my case, the voltage regulator was bad. I ordered a new one, and where it goes on the machine on this one is right here. These 2 bolts right here. So let me get you set up and I'll just show you how to put it on real quick. Now, I don't have a lot of room here, film purposes. But once you know that your voltage regulator is no good, you can order a new one. They're real easy to find online. Just find the one that works for you. Now I'm going to take, I have 2 bolts. They go in here and here. Flat spot goes against your machine. In this case, this is slotted, so I can slide it down over the lower screw and then put the upper screw back. I'm going to do that. I'm going to put that on just like so. And that is it. Just tighten it down. There's nothing special about it. Basically, the voltage regulator, it doesn't even have to be bolted to anything. It could be just hanging there if you want it to be. They just attach it to the tin so it's not floating around and anything getting in the way or messing it up. So now if you wanted to check it again, which I don't have to, you take this is the wire that comes off the stator. It only plugs in one way. You plug those 2 in. And again, it only plugs in one way. If I try to plug it in the other way, it won't go on. So I plug that in. We're good to go. Now if you wanted to test that, the red wire that comes off of it here, again, you take your multimeter, you put the positive here, and use the negative and ground it somewhere. In my case, the battery sits right here, so I could ground it straight to the battery, and I would be showing 14 volts DC coming out of it. And then this just goes back here. And then the final check that you want to do is you want to start your mower. In fact, I'm going to show you that. You want to start the mower. So I'm going to reinstall the battery. I'm going to show you what the voltage is on the battery before we start it. Then when I start the motor, I'm going to show you the voltage again. And when the motor's running, the voltage should go up. So let me get set up to show you that. Okay. So the last thing you want to check when you're dealing with your charging system is, we know now we have good power coming from the stator or the actual generator ring that's going to the voltage regulator. We know now we have a new voltage regulator, so we should be getting 14 volts. I'm not even going to test that. The last thing you want to do is make sure that you have a clear path from the voltage regulator to the battery. If there's no clear path, if you have an exposed wire, if you have a broken connection, the power will never make it from the voltage regulator back to the battery. So in order to test that, it's real simple. Set your multimeter to 12 volts DC, or 20 volts in my case. You want to set it to a higher setting than what you're working on, just the next setting up. So mine is 2 volts, and the next setting is 20 volts. The next one after that's 200 volts. I don't need to go up there. Just to the next one above what we're dealing with, which is 12 volts. And if I test my battery, I'm showing 12.4. Now when I start the machine, and I'm not going to be able to show you the actual reading on that, I'll have to tell you. When I start the machine, I want to make sure that it's revved completely up, that the RPMs are as high as they'll go, because that's where you use it when you are cutting. I'm going to start the machine, and I'm going to test the voltage at the battery again. We're at 12.4 when it's shut off. It should raise up to somewhere in the 13s, maybe even the 14s. And that tells you that you have a clear path from your voltage regulator back to your battery, so you know your charging system is working. Now I also have to replace the starter solenoid on here. I had some wiring issues and it got burned up. So that's why I'm about to start it the way I am. But we had 12.4 when we were shut off. Now I'm going to start it and see where we're at to make sure we're charging. I checked that. First of all, you really can't see it from up there, but the motor is also shaking. I think there's 4 engine bolts that mount it to to the frame. I think one or two of those is loose. That's why I'm getting a little vibration. So before I put this back into service, I'm going to go ahead and tighten those up and stop that engine from moving. But at running, I was still only showing 12.4 volts, which means I do not have a wire that goes from my voltage regulator to my battery. And thinking about that, that makes sense because this wire goes to my PTO switch and this wire goes to my solenoid. So there's only one other wire in question, and it could be that one. I've got to figure out how to get a wire from my voltage regulator back to my battery. And I'll tell you, I think I remembered having this issue. I know that it's this wire right here coming out of here. So more than likely what I'm going to do is take a red wire. I'm going to splice it together right here, coming off my voltage regulator, because I'm not sure what all this extra wiring is here. Power still has to go to the PTO, power has to go to different places. But what I'm going to do is run a wire from here off my voltage regulator, and it's going to go straight to my battery. Now, I think originally this machine, it has a series of wires. This wire is coming off the key. I believe it originally had a series of wires that would come off the voltage regulator here and go most likely to the PTO clutch to power it. But I'm not doing that. I'm relying on the charging system to keep the battery charged and pulling my power straight from the battery over, because I've removed every safety switch on this machine and I bypassed everything. So now the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a wire to this red wire, probably coming right out of here, splice it in, run it to the power side of the battery, and then I should have charging back. So let me do that. Okay, I found my charging wire. I had not hooked it back up originally, and again, this is my fault. Basically, knowing that I had one shot, at the time I didn't own a trailer, to get this machine from here down south so that I could actually use it instead of using a push mower to cut lawns. I just quickly went through the system, got the machine running, and left it alone, knowing figuring I was going to bring it back to the shop months ago to finish some more stuff. So what I found here was that I have my power wire that comes off of my charging system, and that it was just kind of wrapped up with some tape holding it out of the way. So I've already tested this. I started the machine up, I put my multimeter in, which is laying right here. I put the positive lead of the multimeter into this wire, and I put the negative on the battery, and I was showing 14.2 volts. So I know now where my lead is coming from my voltage regulator, and all I'm going to do is change the end on this thing. When I bought this, if you remember the original videos, this thing was kind of a basket case. So I don't know any of the original stuff that was on here. This is a box store machine. This is not a commercial machine in any way. So basically I took all the safeties off because I hate the safety systems on these things. If one of the switches goes bad or any of that crap, you're not going to be able to start the machine, that kind of stuff. So I took all that crap off and just made this machine so that it was a workhorse. So now here's my positive. Now I'm going to attach this to my battery, and let me show you the voltage. Now again, part of the reason I brought this home was because I have all these wires hanging here, and I was basically testing the system to make sure that everything worked, which the charging system didn't. And I'm going to be wrapping all these wires into one line, cleaning everything up, hanging them where they're supposed to be. But in the meantime now, I have put my voltage regulator wire directly onto the positive side of my battery. Again, I believe we were showing 12.4 volts at rest. 12.4. So now I'm going to start it. I don't know whether you'll be able to see it or not, but I'll tell you what it comes out to be. It should go up. So let me start it. Trying to be able to do it with one hand so I could show you the multimeter. We went to 13.8 volts. We went from 12.4 to 13.8, which means we raised it by almost 1.5 volts. Which means we're putting 1.5 volts back into this battery. And what that'll do is charge the battery until it gets all the way to the top, which could be 12.7, 12.8. I've seen it as high as 12.9. And once that gets topped off, any extra power that's going in there will actually just run the PTO clutch and keep the battery charged at all times. So now our charging system is set. When I change out this brain fart, you know what it is, starter solenoid, it's real easy. This just has 2 wires on it, negative, positive. Positive goes on there. It's got 2 bolts in it. Easy to change out. Then my key switch will work again. So now, for those of you that have been asking, all I'm going to do at this point is take all of my wires, wrap them completely so that they're not all just kind of hanging here, shorten up the ones that need to be shortened up, set up the wiring properly just so it's prettier, and we have our charging system back. So I hope that helps you guys, and I'm glad that I showed you the difference, because if I had not checked to see if my voltage went up when the machine was running, I wouldn't have known that I didn't have it connected to the voltage regulator and I still didn't have a charging system. So those are the 3 things to check. Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it. If you made it this far, please hit the subscribe button. We are just a few subscribers away from 2,000, and we just hit 1,000, I don't know, 2 months ago or something. So we're growing fast. We're moving into boats, boat motors, outboards, jet skis, water-related craft. So you're going to want to join the channel and hang around. We're still going to do tractors and 0 turns, but we're moving into boats, and that's a whole lot more fun. So thanks for coming in. See you soon.